Okay, so we're going to look at two reading comprehension strategies today. Determining importance and visualizing. Both of them are pretty important strategies that kind of work hand in hand together. And we're also going to be thinking about how we can make this thinking visible on the page by annotating. We're going to be using the short story, A Very Old Man with Enormous Wings by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I'm going to do a quick model with the first paragraph, and then there's going to be a second paragraph for any of you guys watching to have a practice with afterwards. So the story opens as follows. On the third day of rain, they had killed so many crabs inside the house that Pelayo had to cross his drenched courtyard and throw them into the sea, because the newborn child had a temperature all night and they thought it was due to the stench. The world had been sad since Tuesday. Sea and sky were a single ash-grey thing, and the sands on the beach, which on March nights glimmered like powdered light, had become a stew of mud and rotten shellfish. The light was so weak at noon that when Pelayo was coming back to the house after throwing away the crabs, it was hard for him to see what it was that was moving and groaning in the rear of the courtyard. He had to go very close to see that it was an old man, a very old man, lying face down in the mud, who in spite of his tremendous efforts couldn't get up, impeded by his enormous wings. So we're going to start with the determining importance strategy. And the whole point of this is to think, as we're reading, what's the focus of the paragraph? What's the main thing the writer wants me to be thinking about? What information are they trying to communicate? And one of the ways that we can do this is by pretty simply looking for things that are repeated. If an author's coming back, kind of repeating the same information over and over, it's a really good clue that that's our focus. So if we look through here, we see words like house, courtyard, the sea, sea and sky, sands on the beach, house, courtyard. This idea of place is repeated over and over and over. So we might annotate and say that this is about the setting of the story. Okay, it's the setting of a house by the seaside, and we figure that out by looking for those words that are repeated over and over a bit. The next thing we want to do is start to visualize some more. We want to read through again and think, what other words are there that are helping to describe or help us to understand what that setting looks like, or feels like, or tastes like, or sounds like, or smells like. Okay, we're really looking for those sensory words. So we've got things like third day of rain, drenched, a world had been sad, a stew of mud and rotten shellfish, and the mud. So we get this sense that the setting is very wet. It's been raining for 3 days. Okay, it is a lot of rain. Everything's muddy. What else can we find though? Well, we've got a little bit more description of things like light, a single ash-grey thing. On March nights glimmered like powdered light. The light was so weak, it was hard for him to see what it was that was moving. So now we can say that not only is it a house by the seaside on a really rainy day with a lot of mud, we can also say that the light is really dim. Okay, so it might be in the evening, it might be heading towards nighttime. There's also these little details. Killed so many crabs and the stench. Okay, so we get this extra level of meaning. Okay, we can imagine and kind of visualize the mud full of all these little dead crabs. We can imagine the character walking across the courtyard, being able to smell something really bad, maybe the dead crabs. And if we put all that together, we get a really great image of what this setting looks like, what it smells like, and what it would kind of be like to be there. After that, we can think about, well, is there anything else we can notice? Okay, we've highlighted and annotated, hopefully, these little details that help us understand what the setting looks like, help us visualize it. But I've also noticed that we had a simile in here. Okay, we had on March nights glimmered like powdered light. So we've got this simile that compares the sand at night to powdered light. We've also got some personification happening. So I've just annotated over here, world personified as being sad. Okay, and that brings to mind maybe this image of kind of gloominess, of someone feeling down. It brings a little bit of emotion into the setting. So to recap, we're looking at doing 3 things today. First of all, we're looking at the determining importance strategy. We're asking ourselves, what is the focus of these paragraphs? By looking for what words or ideas are repeated throughout it. Once we've figured out that focus, we want to be able to visualize it. Secondly, we're visualizing. We're looking for words and phrases that give us some kind of indication of what we would see if we were there in this moment, what we could smell, what we could hear, what we could taste, or perhaps what we could feel or touch. And finally, and this is the really important part, guys, we want to annotate. We want to highlight and make note about what you're thinking, because even though it might be happening in your head, once it's on the page, it's a lot easier for us to see what's going on so that we can talk about it, so that you can remember it, and so that you can work with it and kind of build upon it as you keep reading. Here's the second part of this story. A really good example. It's moving on from the setting. Use it to have a think about these 4 questions, or these 3 questions on the side. What is the focus of these paragraphs? What words or phrases help us visualize this key idea? What else do you notice in the passage? And hopefully it goes without saying at this point, annotate your thoughts alongside the text.